Hello there, everyone. It's Mr. E here today on Thanksgiving, wishing all you and yours a happy Thanksgiving. And I've actually brought a roast to the party, a roast of Martyrdom. This is not going to be that delicious, comparatively to something that's actually food, but hey, maybe you can use this video to distract your crazy uncle from talking about politics at the table the entire time. Just say, hey, Uncle Jim, why don't we watch this 30-minute video about an obscure mechanic in a video game that I like, and that'll be awesome. So yeah, that's something that I recommend you do. The other things I recommend you do is to check out my other two videos on reviewing and critiquing some of these less than optimal nodes that we have in Darktide. I did one on burst limiter override, and I did one on feel no pain. And so yeah, the first part of every one of these videos, this one included, is going to be just critiquing and explaining why these skills are not very good in their current existence. And then the second part is changing them up. You know, how can we change this skill to make it better? For Martyrdom, spoilers I guess, but Martyrdom's solution is very simple and very elegant. I didn't take me very long at all to figure out what was wrong with Martyrdom and fix it. So you'll have that to look forward to, but we're going to spend a good amount of time actually telling you what's wrong with it and why you shouldn't be picking it in its current iteration. So with that being said, go like and subscribe and all that good stuff, but after you do that, here we go. Okay, so here we are. Let's discuss what Martyrdom purports to give us, and then what we actually will be getting out of it, as well as what we have to give up to get it. Because unlike a lot of keystones in this game, the only thing that you give up isn't just the opportunity cost to take the other nodes. No, there's other things you have to sacrifice, thus the name Martyrdom, in order to achieve the intended effect. Although I think they intended that the Martyrdom was sacrificing your health. But we end up having to make a lot of other sacrifices too. And I think it's important to visualize that so you can see what the increasing toll on any given build is to take this keystone as it currently stands. So firstly, what does it do? It gives us 8% melee damage for each missing wound up to a maximum of 7 missing wounds. 7 times 8 is 56%, so we get 56% melee damage. Then we get 4% attack speed per missing wound, so 4 times 7 is 28% attack speed. And then we get 6.5% toughness damage reduction per missing wound, and that's 6.5 times 7 is 45.5% toughness damage reduction. So that, on its face, sounds pretty nice, and here I have it all laid out. This is what Martyrdom giveth you. Honestly, not a bad keystone, just from the looks of it right here. However, we need to first talk about if this is actually correct. And, spoilers, it's not, because this is the theoretical maximum for what this node can give you. You do not get this reward unless you are missing all of those wounds, and on the highest two difficulties, on Heresy and Damnation, you cannot be missing 7 wounds, because you start the game with 2 wounds on your character, and you can gain 2 wounds through this node right here, Faith's Fortitude, and you can gain 3 more by putting 3 curios on. So you'll have 7. However, if you lose all 7, you go down. So you can only lose 6. So we have to go back to what Martyrdom giveth and reassess this. We need to say, okay, it doesn't actually give 56%. It actually gives 48%. And it doesn't actually give 28% attack speed, it actually gives 24% attack speed. And it doesn't actually give 45.5 toughness damage reduction, it actually gives 39% toughness damage reduction. But these numbers still look pretty good. So we'll leave it there for right now, and now we'll start to assess what did we have to invest to get to here. And the first thing, by the way, this is a great example. If this node was actually good, this build right here would be pretty much what I would run every game with it. I think this would be in a very, very strong, and probably is a reasonably strong Martyrdom build as it exists. But we'll talk about some issues that you'll have with it, starting with, we need to talk about what Martyrdom taketh away. And Martyrdom, first and foremost, taketh away toughness, because in order to get this benefit here, we have to sacrifice our curios, right? If we do not have any curios that award us additional additional wounds, then the maximum benefit we can get out of it is only 3 stacks, because you'll have 4 total wounds thanks to the 2 you start with and the 2 you get from your tree. So you'll only get 3 times 8%, so that would be 24% melee damage. And then we would have 3 times, so we do 12%, basically half of this. And then half of whatever that is, 15, 18.5, right? No, 19.5. Yeah, 19.5 TDR. Okay, so this is what you would actually get if you did not run any curios devoted to it. 24% melee damage, 12% attack speed, and 20% toughness damage reduction. And this is if you are on very, very low HP, if you are in the last quarter of your life. So, you know, that's risky, right? So we're already losing between 34 and 51% toughness if we want this reward up here. If we don't want this toughness, or if we don't want to sacrifice the toughness, we're only going to be able to maximally have this much reward down here. So that's already a big trade-off. Most people want this reward, and so they're going to sacrifice the toughness. Now, the other thing you might sacrifice is stamina, something that's even more important than toughness currently. Even if you wanted to take all wounds, you would probably still really highly consider putting a stamina curio in there, right? Because this is a build that does melee damage. You're in melee, you got attack speed and stuff. You need to have stamina to push and shove and do all sorts of stuff, especially at a high skill level. So if you want to incorporate stamina, if you need that extra stamina, you're going to lose 8% melee damage, or bring you down to 40. You're going to lose 4% attack speed, or bring you down to 20. You're going to lose 6.5% toughness damage reduction. It'll bring you back down to 32.5. So we're losing effectiveness. Every curio we devote to stats that are actually good, we lose something from our keystone, which I think is, you know, that's fair that it can ask you to make that trade-off, but it's already asked you to make the trade-off with your health. What else does it ask us to sacrifice? Well, because we're taking Martyrdom, and we're not taking the best keystone for Zealot right now, which is Blazing Piety, we lose 25% critical chance. Now, this is actually a bigger deal than it would otherwise seem, because we need to get Invocation of Death going. Every meta build right now, every really good Zealot build, you know, most of which are revolving around Fury of the Faithful, some of which are revolving around Shroud Field. If you want to do a Martyrdom Shroud Field, that'd be interesting. We need to be getting critical hits with some regularity. The problem is that without Blazing Piety, we have Scourge, and we have whatever's on our weapon. And so what you would need to do in order to get a reasonable amount of crit chance is you need to have 5% as a perk on your weapon, and you need to run a weapon that can give you Riposte for an additional 20% crit chance. And that's why I say you might also have to sacrifice a weapon blessing to the Martyrdom gods in order to get this bonus, because you don't have that 25% crit, and you need to make up for it for somewhere. Because though we do have Scourge in the build that can give us up to 30% crit chance for 3 seconds when we hit bleeding enemies, we need to have some way to jumpstart our critical chance in order to get enemies bleeding. There's lots of ways you could do that. You could have Lacerate, the one that causes bleeding on melee or on body shot hit for the knife or something like that, but that's sacrificing a blessing. You need a way to jumpstart your crit to get to a certain level so that you can actually get the first bleed stacks onto an enemy, and then you can start to stack Scourge from there. But that is where Blazing Piety saves these builds. That's where Blazing Piety is very important. We need to reach somewhere around that 50% crit mark, 50 to 60% once we have Scourge fully stacked up. Without Blazing Piety, we have to devote a blessing and a perk on our weapon to get to there. Otherwise, we're not going to have enough uptime on Invocation of Death, and we're going to fall very far behind builds that actually use Blazing Piety in terms of regenerating our ultimate abilities. So that's another sacrifice you'll make. And then biggest and most importantly, I think, is we sacrifice safety. And safety is an issue. I'm here to be Darktide OSHA director for a moment and discuss safety with you, workplace safety as rejects. When you are playing on low HP with Martyrdom, you are endangering not only yourself, but you are imperiling your team's chances of winning as well. Because you might believe you are in full control of the game, but you are not. And here, let's just show, I've got some B-roll. Let me just show you what playing with Martyrdom, you think Martyrdom looks like, right? Here you go.
You are nothing fit from old war. The blasting law. It's charging. You shall not die. I forbid it.
Oh, my bad. That was actually some footage of me playing with the Martyrdom ability in Vermintide 2 called Fiery Faith. Huh. I noticed I didn't take any damage at all there. That looked pretty clean, honestly. But here's what Martyrdom actually looks like in real gameplay. Yeah, okay, so this can happen. I mean, this was obviously a staged thing, but that can totally happen in games, and it can be completely out of your control. And recently, Fat Shark shipped a huge Martyrdom nerf. It was a stealth nerf, but it was a massive nerf to Martyrdom, and that is that flamers now explode when you get anywhere fucking near them. If an ally shoots a flamer, one single bullet grazes anywhere near its top half of its torso, and the millisecond before you smash your hammer or your stabby rapier into that flamer, that bullet impacts their tank, you explode and you take damage directly to your HP. If you're playing Martyrdom and you're on low HP, this is just the bane of your existence, because it bypasses your toughness totally and damages your HP directly, which can put you into the down state. And once you're in the down state, there is no guarantee in this game, especially when you're playing a melee character, that your team can get you back up. You are now a burden to your team because you have chosen to play a certain keystone that makes you, in order to get these benefits, you have to play in a way that's going to endanger and imperil yourself and imperil your team's chance of succeeding. Because once a person is down on the team, everything gets harder for everyone else, right? Suddenly the load of enemies that was split 4 ways before, those remaining enemies are now split 3 ways between the remaining allies, and they have an additional task they need to do, which is saving you. And any specials or whatever that were going for you, they're now going for your allies instead. So that is how a single person getting down can quickly snowball a situation and cause your team to completely wipe, especially because we're playing a melee character when we're using Martyrdom, because it gives us melee damage and not some other sort of damage. And so we're on the front line, we're fighting enemies, and if we do take it down to a flamer explosion or a barrel explosion, we will end up being surrounded by enemies, and therefore our allies are going to have to wade into that in order to get us out. And when they do get us out, we're reset to full HP, but with 1 wound missing. And due to the way that the wound mechanics work, we lose pretty much all of our Martyrdom benefit until we get our ass beat again and lose all of that health and get knocked down into a dangerous low again. We also lose some things I'm not going to list on this Martyrdom thing. We also lose, I'll put it on here, efficacy of green syringes. We're no longer a good candidate for using green syringes, when normally zealots are a pretty damn good choice for using green syringes, because they replenish 100 HP and clear half of their health bar of wounds. But by adding extra wounds to your health bar, you actually break up your HP more and you get less healing out of green syringes. You also have to you can't hang out near health kits. I'm just going to put it as health kits, because, you know, when you want to be on low HP, if your team puts a health kit on the ground, you don't want that HP. Suddenly there's a big green no-go zone that would heal you and take some of your Martyrdom Giveth benefit away. So you have to play this weird inverse game and avoid it like the plague. And yeah, and occasionally you will need to do a reset and take some Medicaid, right? You've taken enough downs. You're in a perilous situation where you really don't have that much overall health left to work with. Maybe on your last down, and you'll have to take the Medicaid. But in order to get any benefit out of your keystone, again, you need to start taking damage and wasting the health that you got invested in you. So basically, you cannot use Medicaid stations at all. If you're using Medicaid stations on yourself, you are wasting health that could have been given to your team, who are actually going to keep their health and hang on to it. You are just going to go and burn the health by taking the first small enemy you can and having it beat you up. So these are all the things that Martyrdom deprives you of if you want the full benefit. If you want a partial benefit, you can get some toughness and you can get stamina. You could get this much if you have all of your health missing. You could have 34% toughness and 3 stamina, and you would get this much benefit right here. But you'd still be lacking 25% crit, and that means that you would have to sacrifice a perk and a blessing on your weapon to get enough crit to actually have a good build. You are still playing a very perilous build that's going to put you in a situation that you wouldn't expect is coming, but it's eventually going to knock you down and it could be at a very bad time, and it could cause wipes. I can't think of a single other keystone in the game where the usage of it can coincidentally cause teams to wipe. As much as I like to blame veterans who don't bring shout, that's fine. Their abilities are contributing in a different way, but I don't see veterans intentionally putting themselves I don't see veterans out there playing Russian roulette to get their keystones to work. But that's what you're doing effectively with when you're playing Martyrdom, is you are tempting fate to put you down in a bad situation and have your team not able to rescue you. And then we lose all ability to use health items with any efficacy. Syringes are out the window. They're much better to be used on other classes now. So taking health damage, we really can't even recoup it efficiently. Health kits, we have to avoid them in order to not lose some of our benefit. And if we do end up using a Medicaid station for any reason, we then have to sacrifice all their health again to get any benefit. So, this can be a mechanic, right? This can be a mechanic where having low health rewards you, but it needs to offer us something unique in order to make up for all of what it is sacrificing. So hopefully that explains why Martyrdom is not considered very good currently. I think the biggest two things here are this. The biggest things here are this, right? This part here. Who cares about the healing stuff? You can just not get healed at all in a mission if you're good enough. But not having that toughness, that extra flat toughness, even though you do have toughness damage reduction, it doesn't make up for it, because you'll only have this much at maximum stacks, and even then you have to worry about your safety because barrels and stuff still exist in the world. So you're playing the game watching every corner, staying up, you can't sleep at night because you're worried about barrels exploding near you. And then you can't have any stamina if you want this full benefit, and most importantly, I think to me and most meta builds, is that lack of crit, because crit is so huge right now in order to get Invocation of Death, and just generally for the weapons that are considered very strong in the meta want to be critting more. Okay, so that's everything about Martyrdom and why it's not very good right now. I don't harbor any ill will against anyone that plays Martyrdom. It sounds like a pretty fun idea on its surface, but it just doesn't break down to be very good in comparison or in competition with its rivals. Let's see if what I have cooked up does any better. So this is the new Martyrdom, and the way I have structured this is now Martyrdom is dependent on your HP instead of wounds. So no longer do we need to take wound curios, which are empirically useless, right? We are going to take health curios if you want to get more benefit out of this. And health curios, you know what? They're all right. And health curios have a lot of synergy with other things in the Zealot talent tree. He has ways of gating his health, like until death. We have a health related blessing here. We have a health related blessing here. We have additional health down here. So we can have a lot of HP if we stack our health curios. Now, you probably wouldn't want to take all 3 health curios. You probably just want to take 2 and some stamina if you're playing optimally. But if you have max health curio, it's 26% health. And let's assume we take all 3 of them. So we'll get 3 26s, that's 78, and then we get an additional 10% from this node right here, so that's 88. So we would multiply our health of 200 by 1.88. All right, so that's a total of 376 HP. We would be a very, very beefy boy if we had 376 HP. And that can be extended a lot by some of these abilities if you wanted to use them. However, the most important factor here is that how do we get our melee damage? How do we get the basic benefit of Martyrdom? Well, it's by missing your HP. And for every 35 missing HP, you gain 5%. So if we just do this, if we divide by 35, this will tell us how many benefits we can get. And that means we can get 10 stacks of Martyrdom, bringing us to 50% melee damage at max. And then we'll have 74% of a wound left over. So 35 times 35 times 0.74. There we go. So we will have 25 HP left over to play around with. That's actually quite a bit. It'll little tiny bits of chip damage through your toughness, stuff like that. You'll have a little bit of window. You won't be playing on exactly 1 HP, but this is pretty damn low. This is like less than 5. It's like 5%, like a little bit more than 5% of your overall HP if you want all the stacks. But since the stacks are so much smaller and there's 10 of them instead of just 6 of them, we incrementally get more value out of this. So playing at a medium health level is going to we're going to slowly get more benefit out of this over time rather than the benefit coming in huge chunks. Then I did very little tweaking of this perk down here. Maniac gives you 2.5 attack speed per 35 missing HP. If you're a math whiz among us, that means that you're going to get 25% attack speed when you have all of the maximum missing stacks. That would be pretty cool. 25% attack speed. That's roughly on par with the 28 it promises us on the tin, but it's a lot easier to get because we don't have to worry about taking all curios. And remember that because this is health related, it's independent of the difficulty you're playing on, which is really, really important. Not nerfing this ability for the highest 2 difficulties was one of my big goals in doing this rework. And then finally, Fiery Faith is going to replace the toughness damage reduction. I didn't like the idea that this is a build that has you sacrifice your HP and play on a razor's edge in order to get some really big bonuses. I think that this should be another bonus that encourages you to have a high skill cap skill that's encouraging you to play on that razor's edge. And the closer you get to death, the more furiously you fight. The faster you move, the faster you attack, the harder you hit. Having the class get harder to kill as it gets lower in HP just didn't fit with the theme of it for me. So I think this was an ability, basically an ability that came from Vermintide 2. You gained movement speed for every missing portion of your HP in that game, and you saw what that looked like in that footage I aired just a bit ago. So I had this be a very small number though, 1.5% movement speed per 35 missing HP, so 15% movement speed overall, because movement speed in this game is very, very broken, and the Zealot already has ways of scaling his movement speed pretty high, and an additional 15% is actually a lot. You don't appreciate it, but yeah, having this much movement speed in this game is going to make you tremendously fast, and you'll close the gap on enemies crazy, crazy fast. But this is a type of defense, just like the node was before, where it offered you defense from having toughness damage reduction. This is its own type of defense because a skilled player can use fast movement to avoid melee attackers and ranged attackers. So that is the idea behind Fiery Faith. All right, so this is the whole overview of Martyrdom, and let me just break it down because this was the remember, we'd get 50% melee damage, we would get 25% attack speed, and 15% movement speed if we have all 3 health curios. But what about if you only chose to take 2 health curios and 1 stamina curio, which is probably the meta way to play this? Well, you would have 52% increase over the normal because each curio will give you 26% HP, and we'd get 10% from the tree. So we'd have a 1.62 times multiplier on our 200 health. and that gives us 320 HP, and we will divide that by 35. So we would get 9 stacks instead if we were missing all of this, which means that we would instead have 45% melee damage, 22.5% attack speed, and 13.5% movement speed. But we would only have a very, very small sliver, 14% of whatever 35 times 0.142, I think it was. We would only have a little less than 5 HP left on our bar if you wanted to get that full 9 stacks of benefit without that, which you could totally do. I think this would be way more viable and way more fun. It would be more iconic to the way that this build or this idea should be played, rather than it being like this half tank thing. And if there's something I forgot to mention, explosions will not directly damage your HP. That is the base benefit of taking Martyrdom. Is yes, you do have to sacrifice HP. You do have to play with health cures instead of toughness cures, which is suboptimal currently. You will have to lose HP to get any benefit out of this. So yeah, it has a lot of trade-offs required to get this benefit. And remember, you are still missing that critical chance. So you'll still need to sacrifice stuff on your weapons. But I didn't think it was fair to have that much sacrifice go on without at least one upside. And that one upside that I gave it is the one thing that cucks Martyrdom the hardest, which is that explosions can instantly down you. Now explosions will chunk your toughness just like everything else in the game does. So that will solve the barrel and flamer question in the room. Alright guys, so that's everything. Let me know what you think about this fix. I think it's really simple. I think it's really elegant. It's totally doable. Hopefully I explained my problems with Martyrdom pretty well. I know that I kind of dragged on here for a bit, but I appreciate you all watching. Thank you very much. Have a good Thanksgiving, and I will see you tomorrow for some more Dark Tide content. Alright, peace out y'all. Mystery out.